You know, Harold, when you look back on your life and you've done many things, what are the key elements of social change? What do you think people should know about if they want to actually make social and economic change? What are the fundamental pillars of that you've seen in your life?
Well, I think they should have a philosophy, and that is people should understand the basic thinking behind what they're wanting to do. I'm thinking that from my early days, I was interested in people working together to do things for themselves. And my dad was part of this with the wheat pool and the beef ring and working with neighbors, and with the church. And I think that's guided me over the years as well. And I've enjoyed working with people in this kind of a way and feel good about it.
How important is it to have integrity and honesty in that kind of work of change?
Oh, I think it's fundamental to working with people to not only have a philosophy yourself, but to be honest about expressing it.
And when you look back, what have been the highlights of change that you've seen or that you've been part of?
Well, over the years, I've been part of working with groups that shared this type of philosophy, and perhaps I've helped them to develop the philosophy. And I must say that that I was helped in the early years and over the years by leaders who believed in this kind of philosophy and who practiced it in their lives. I'm thinking of people like Tommy Douglas, who was my minister when I worked with the Department of Co-operatives, and Barney Arneson, who was the deputy minister, a real sound chap. And then people like Louis Lloyd, who was involved with the Cooperative Union and was on the board of Federated Co-ops and president of Federated, and Harry Fowler, another solid guy who was involved in developing the co-op refinery, which has supported the cooperatives over the years. And Harry was a chap that had the saying that if the co-op doesn't have it, you don't need it. And that's a pretty definite kind of a statement.
Well, when you look back on Saskatchewan, you know, when you looked at the development of the cooperative commonwealth, and you look back at the role of co-ops or the role of the state in making social change, do you still think those are options for change? Are they still useful vehicles to make a better community?
I think they are. I think the option is always there for people to work together to solve their problems, and so I think they are still there. But more and more people seem to be taking the option of developing large corporations, even farm corporations, rather than working together with their neighbors in a cooperative way. But this is an option that they're taking. But my feeling is that as the new generations, since I was involved with developing cooperatives, the new generations don't have knowledge about what a cooperative is, and about using that method of dealing with their problems, and And our schools, for example, don't seem to be teaching and helping people to understand that this is one of the options that's available, and that it would be advisable for them to really look into and do something about.
You've talked a lot about education and linked to schools, but education also goes to the adults in communities. How important is it to have good extension adult education capacities and people who can go out and organize?
Well, I think it's extremely important. Now, I've said, and it's in my book, elaborated on, the saying that organizations, people's organizations, without an adequate educational program will last a generation and a half. And at my age, I've seen this happening over the years. Now, in the early days in Saskatchewan, people had major problems, and in the farming, in marketing their products, and they followed the leadership of people who were suggesting that they get together and organize their cooperative organizations to handle the marketing of their products and the purchasing of goods and borrowing money. And I can remember when I was a boy and a youth, the cost of borrowing money, and which led to the development of credit unions, and the difficulty of farmers in getting their grain to market without being exploited by railroads, by marketing companies, and the farmers responded to the leadership at that time of people who had knowledge about organizing cooperatives. Now, it was during that period, those years, that, for example, a wheat pool was formed, and its membership consisted of most of the farmers in Saskatchewan. But it did have a major educational program. It was organized into 16 districts, and in each district there was a field man whose job it was to help the members in that district to understand what a cooperative was and to play their role as a member or as a committee member or delegate or board member. Their job was to do this. Now, it's been many years now since we've had this kind of assistance to farmers to help them to organize cooperatively. I was involved in organizing machinery cooperatives and cooperative farms, and to assist them in setting up their organizations, setting up their bylaws, bookkeeping systems, helping the board to understand its job and to carry it out. There isn't the same kind of assistance available now to people to understand and to follow through in organizing cooperatively when they encounter problems. So I think that this is something that over the next number of years will need to be dealt with, because there are a number of ways of organizing. There's the joint stock company, there's the partnerships, there's crown corporations, but there's also the cooperative way. And there's a need for education for people to have knowledge about organizing a cooperative along with their neighbors, to help them to deal with problems that they have.
There seems to be a real push on now to dismantle the crown corporations. From your point of view, how important are crown corporations?
Well, I think crown corporations are an important one of the important methods for services to be provided for the people. And with crown corporations, they're owned by the government, established by the government, and they provide services where profit-making corporations would not necessarily be interested in providing a service. And then when they do make a surplus, this becomes income to the government, and it's an important kind of an income. Now, if these are changed into private profit corporations, then the profits go to the shareholders. And these shareholders may or may not even live in the province. So I think that crown corporations are an important method of organizing to provide services.
You've got some milestones that you're coming into. You're turning 100 on April 29th.
Yeah.
And you just got the Order of Canada. So what are your reflections about that?
Well, I feel very humble about getting this kind of recognition. There are many people that have provided services to their communities and to their province, and I just feel very fortunate to have been given the opportunity of receiving this kind of recognition. But I do recognize that there are many people that I worked with over the years that made a tremendous contribution, and that and that could have been receiving a similar kind of recognition that I'm receiving.
And you're going to be turning 100?
I'll be turning 100.
You'll be celebrating with your friends?
And celebrating with friends, and my family will all be here, and many friends, and they'll be helping me to celebrate my 100th birthday.